Hi there, it's Pastor Jake here in the office at Grace United Methodist Church. I'm here with a special message for you because Easter is coming up on Sunday, April 4th, which is very soon. There's two things that I love about Easter that I want to share with you. The first is Easter eggs, and of course you already know all about Easter eggs. The second is that I love to share the Easter story. Now, Easter is the story of how Jesus came to a place called Jerusalem, and he finished the work that he came to earth to do. It's a story of how he loved everyone, even when they made bad choices. He loved everyone, even when they didn't love him back. And actually, to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you a secret. Easter is a little bit of a hard story to tell because there's some parts of it that are just not, they don't feel good to think about. And some parts are even a little bit scary. So I'm going to actually take the two things I love about Easter, the Easter eggs and the Easter story, I'm going to combine them in this lovely set of resurrection eggs. I'll tell you about resurrection in a little bit, maybe next week. There's 12 eggs here, and each of the 12 tell a little bit of the Easter story with a little toy inside of each one. So I'm going to take you through the first 6 eggs here, which is the first 6 parts of the Easter story. And I want to tell you that if you have any questions about the Easter story, if there's something that doesn't make sense to you or that you just think is kind of weird, it's always okay to ask a teacher or a pastor or any grown-up your questions, and they will talk to you about what they think. So, the first egg here is blue. What's in this one? Inside the blue egg is a little donkey. So there's a story that begins the Easter week where Jesus rode into the city of Jerusalem riding on a little donkey. And everyone who saw him was super excited, and they loved that he was coming to their city, and they spread out their coats on the ground, and they waved big palm leaves, and they shouted, "Hosanna," which means "Save us," to the Son of David. They loved seeing Jesus. People showed their happiness that Jesus had arrived, and they saw him riding into the town on a donkey, on the back of a donkey. I'm going to put my donkey here. Here you go. All right. The next egg is a pink one. Let's see what's inside. Dump it out. There's 3 coins here. 1, 2, 3. I knocked my donkey over. Let's see what the coins are all about. So there's a story in the Bible. One of Jesus' 12 best friends, whose name was Judas Iscariot, he went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I hand Jesus over to you?" And they gave him 30 pieces of silver. So this is like 10, 20, 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray Jesus. To betray someone means to hurt someone that trusts you. So 3 coins, because they gave Judas 30 pieces of silver to help them catch and capture Jesus. Some of the people there pretended to be Jesus' friends, but they really weren't. So Judas actually loved money more than he loved Jesus. And there were some people who even hated Jesus so much that they wanted to kill him. But they needed Judas to help them because Judas was one of Jesus' best friends. So here's our donkey that Jesus rode into town on. Here's 3 coins, just like Judas took 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus, who trusted him. Here's our next egg for our next part of the Easter story. It is, let's see, it is a little tiny cup. So, Jesus had a special dinner with his disciples. That was 12 of his closest friends who traveled with him and learned from him. So during the meal he had with them, Jesus stood up and he held out a cup and he gave everyone something to drink. Then Jesus said something that was very hard for them to understand. He said that the wine in the cup was his blood. Now, he didn't actually mean that they would be drinking blood, but the wine was like a symbol or like a little picture of his blood. It was like blood. So he wanted them to remember this special night and the promise that he was making to them and to all the people, that he was going to give up his life for the whole world. And what's our sign of life? It's blood. So that's our third egg. So the next egg is an orange one. And let's see what's inside. It is 2 hands put put together just like they're praying hands, just like you could put your hands together and pray anytime you wanted to. So after Jesus had that dinner with his disciples, Jesus took them to a garden. I wonder if you have a garden where you live. So he asked them to pray while he went to another place in the garden and talked to God all by himself. Jesus started to feel sad, and he was afraid because he knew what was going to happen. He knew that he was going to die. Now Jesus was willing to die. We know that because one other time he said, "Nobody takes my life from me, but I give it up because I choose to." One of the amazing things about Jesus that I want to tell you about is that like nobody before him and like nobody after him, Jesus was both God and he was a human being like you and me, all at the same time. So because he was God, he was willing to die. Sorry, I wandered off here. He was willing to die because of how much he loved the whole world. But because he was a human being, and human beings don't like to feel pain. I don't like to feel pain. He did not want to go through that, and he was afraid of that part because he knew that dying would mean hurting. So when he was afraid and feeling sad, he went off and he went to go pray. So I want you to know that when you feel afraid or sad about anything, you can do just what Jesus did. You can put your hands together and you can say to God exactly how you're feeling. Okay. Our next egg, number 4, this one's really hard for me to talk about. You'll see why. Do you know what this is? This is a whip. When Jesus finished praying in the garden, the men who wanted to kill him, they took him as their prisoner. They brought him to a very powerful man named Pontius Pilate, who was their ruler. And Pontius Pilate had Jesus whipped. So that was when someone took a whip just like this one and hurt him with it. It was long and it was hard on the ends, and it hurt Jesus so much that it made him bleed. So Jesus hadn't done anything wrong at all. But the people who wanted to hurt him, the people who wanted to kill him, they were just really, really afraid, and they wanted Jesus out of their way. They knew that if the people really believed that Jesus was the Son of God, which he was, they would follow him, and they wouldn't follow Pontius Pilate, the powerful man in charge. Sometimes when we're feeling afraid, we make bad choices, and choosing to hurt Jesus, well, that was a very, very bad choice. That's the whip. Let's look at our next one. This is the last one I'm going to do this week. Okay, so this one, also a little strange at first. This is you tell me what this is? It's a rooster. It goes, that's my rooster sound. What does a rooster have to do with the Easter story? Well, one of Jesus' very best friends was a man named Peter. And when Peter heard the sound of a rooster, it made him feel really, really sad. I'll tell you why. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends ever. And once he promised Jesus that no matter how dangerous and hard things might get, he would always be a loyal friend. Jesus could depend on him. But that began to change when Peter realized that those who wanted to kill Jesus might want to kill and hurt him too. In fact, Peter was so afraid that when it came down to it, when someone asked him, "Hey, do you know Jesus?" he said, "I do not know Jesus." And that happened 3 times. 3 times he said, "No, I'm not Jesus' friend," because he felt so afraid of what was going to happen. So just the evening before, when Peter had promised he was going to be a loyal friend, Jesus told him, Jesus already knew, that he would deny knowing him not just once or twice, but 3 times. And in fact, it happened just the way Jesus said it would. The rooster was still crowing in the morning when Peter remembered what Jesus had said. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And Peter felt so sorry and so ashamed that he started crying. So there's 6 more eggs, 6 more parts of our Easter story, and I promise it has such a happy ending. But if we're going to tell the whole story, we need to remember that there's some really sad parts and some really hard parts to talk about too. There's the happy part with the donkey. There's the sad part with the 3 coins that they gave Judas to make a bad choice. Then there's the happy part where Jesus got to have a special supper with his friends. And Jesus was afraid, and he prayed. Then there's the really sad part where they took a whip, and they hurt Jesus so bad that he bled. And then there's one of the saddest parts of all, where Peter made a bad choice as a friend. He wasn't a good friend for Jesus. And when he heard the rooster crow, he remembered exactly what Jesus had said. And the amazing part was that Jesus loved you and me, even though we hadn't met us yet. And Jesus loved Judas, even though Judas made a bad choice. Jesus loved the people who hurt him with the whip. And Jesus loved Peter, even though Peter 3 different times said he wasn't Jesus' friend at all. I think it's just so amazing that Jesus loved that much. And that's why I love telling you the Easter story. Because it means Jesus is always going to love us too. So I promise you next week it gets even better. We're going to finish off our resurrection eggs in a different video next week. So have a wonderful weekend. Take care and be kind.